Hello, how are you? Today we are going to talk with a Mexican artist who has worked very hard here in the United Kingdom to connect the Mexican culture and art with the British one. Without any doubt, he is one of the most active cultural ambassadors of our country, Mexico. In 2015, he opened the Charlton Gallery, where he showcases Mexican and British art. Also, he has several exhibitions of contemporary Mexican and British art, both in Mexico and the United Kingdom. He has contributed with the British Council, Art Council of England, the National Council for Culture and the Arts, Conaculta, Tate Modern and Tate Britain, Royal Academy of Arts, and so on. Today, we have here Javier. Thank you very much for accepting the invitation of the Center for Mexican Studies, UNAM UK. It's a pleasure to talk with you about the most recent project that you are building. So, please, who is Javier?
Well, I'm not an artist, I think an artist, yes, an artist, but not an artist as such. I will consider myself more as kind of catalyst and a dreamer who promotes a dreamer. In this case, the dream for the last 10 years has been to promote British artists in Mexico and Mexican artists in the UK. The little story is that when I came to the UK in 2004, I wanted to be an artist, yes, at the time, and I was very much interested in video art after taking some courses in Mexico with artists such as Jimena Cuevas. So I was looking forward to come to the UK and have the experience of the arts and everything, but then everything changed. I have a daughter, and then things changed, and in 2010 I started doing the first exhibitions, which was in Kilburn, promoting Mexican video art. 2011, something a bit more developed. In 2012, we have more things, and then that continued until 2015, when I finally managed to get this place, and then I started Charlton Gallery. The purpose of Charlton Gallery was to promote British and Mexican artists. So during those 5 years, we had a lot of Mexican artists here, artists from different generations, but very much focusing on the contemporary art practices. We have some well-known artists such as Joshua Cohn, or we have Paula Weiss, who she's dead, but she's a very important artist, and we have other younger artists such as Marcos Castro, people from Bikini Wax, and other artists. And in Mexico, we also have exhibitions. In 2015, for example, we have exhibitions with an exhibition for dual year, and we have the Elizabeth Prize. Yes. And then every year we have been doing an exhibition of British artists in Mexico.
And we also saw that you contributed to the exhibition in the Metro Polanco. Is that right?
We have two exhibitions. We curated an exhibition of British artists in Metro Auditorio in 2015, and then another exhibition at Metro Auditorio in 2019, and then one more this year in 2020. We have a special exhibition with British mariachis on the 31st of January. Okay. That was the Brexit Day, and yes, I'm very much interested in public art and the possibility that people can access art without having to enter into to get inside the gallery.
That's really exciting to me personally, because I have seen those exhibitions, and now that I am here in front of you, it's really exciting to know what is the mind, what's also behind those projects. So what a pleasure. So what was the idea or the inspiration behind the UK Mexican Art Society?
This is perhaps the most important change, and something that I am very much. I really want everyone to understand what's the purpose and what's the idea. And I started to think about what is Mexico, and getting to know the history, the legacy of the people who have been in Mexico. And little by little I fell in love back again with all these stories, the landscape, thinking about all the good things. And really Mexico is like, you can compare Mexico to China, India, and the West. But also, and the West, but when I mean the West, I think about Greece and the influence from, which is Egypt. So what I eventually understood clearly was that Mexico is one of the six. In Mexico we have one of the six original civilizations, which is the Mesoamerican cultures. So we have six in the world, what we call modern civilizations, or what anthropologists can understand now. So one is Egypt, the other one is Persia, the Hindu Valley, China, Mesoamerican cultures, and the Andinians. So as such, we have such rich culture and so much to say, so much to talk about. And then it's not just about the pre-Hispanic, but also then the colonial times, and then the independent, the center of independence from 1820s to the revolution in 1910, 1920, all this period. So there's a very rich history, and there's so much to say and so much to know, to understand, to discover, to talk about. And so the purpose of the UK Mexican Art Society is to promote Mexican arts from antiquity to the present.
Do you have a timeline or something like that?
I think we can start with what is called the modern culture of the Americas, which is the Olmecs. So the Olmecs, we can trace the origin of the Olmecs from about 3,000 to 3,500 years from now. So it's 1,000, 1,500 years before this Common Age, Christian Age. So the Olmecs are very interesting, they are very important, they are the modern culture because there's a lot of the other cultural aspects that we will find in the Mayans, in the Mixtecs, Toltecs, Olmecs, and all the other cultures until the end with the biggest. We know the Aztecs or Mexicas. There's a lot of cultural motifs and things that you will find in these 3,000 we would say about 2,000 years or more of nearly 3,000 years of history, I would say. And then, but then after the independence, after the colonial, I mean, when the Spanish actually next year in 2021, it's 500 years since the fall of Tenochtitlan, and the country, obviously the cultures suffer, the Mexicas and other cultures from the Mesoamericans, was pretty much the end of Mesoamerican culture as they practiced that before. I mean, the type of beliefs they have, the gods and everything. But then, doesn't mean that the country became poorer. In a way, it became poorer because some things were suppressed, but also became richer because then we have all the Spanish arriving, but the Spanish already were conquered by the Arabs. So then we have the Mesoamericans, then we have all this Western tradition influenced by the Arab tradition. So we talk about also a very rich period of time from 1521 to 1820 when the independence happened. So about 3 centuries of another very rich period that needs to be talked about, that needs to be addressed, and so we have the Mesoamerican cultures. Very important to talk about the legacy, and very important to know about them in this present, because they said if we want to go forward, then we need to know what happened before. So everything happening in the future is influenced by the past.
Yeah,
And virtual reality, artificial intelligence, all of that, it's not that they invent something new. What they do is they are pretty much influenced by the knowledge of the past culture. So it's very important at this time to make sure, for me, it's very important that we understand what Mesoamerican is and understand the legacy and appreciate it, value it. Then to see the richness of the colonial times, and then after the independence, again, the country becomes richer because then we have other type of influences. Then we have more Germans coming with other traditions. They are invited to invest in Mexico when the countries became more modern. Then we have a huge influence of Germans, English people. Obviously, we have influence other Europeans, and so the country becomes richer. And also they rediscover or kind of reinterpret, or the Mexican identity flourish back again, because after the independence, after the conquest in 1521, a lot of traditions of cultural activities were suppressed, but with the revolution, a lot of things come back.
That's true.
But this time they come back also influenced by all what it has been happening during those 3-4 centuries. So the culture is really rich. This, what we call this syncretism, for example, like this really, really rich culture.
So it's what you want to transmit, because, for example, during the lockdown in London, I remember that you made a video saying that the former Charlton gallery aimed to transmit humanities. So now the society, what the society wants to transmit.
I was thinking so much about the legacy of. I was thinking about the Toltecs. The Toltecs was this culture. Probably they rise from about before 1000 to about 1200, or about 3 centuries. And the Toltecs are considered like in Mesoamerica, you can think about the Toltecs as the Greeks. So they are good artists, they are humanists, and their god is Quetzalcoatl. Quetzalcoatl is for peace, is for wisdom. So I was reading so much about this legacy, about this humanist legacy, and something that I really like is about what makes us different from, let's say, from Europeans, is that in Mexico there's a bit more of kind of intuition, a bit more of spiritual value. There's a little bit more of belief in something supreme, but also I suppose sometimes there's more respect for the others. I don't know, I have the impression it's a bit more, it's something which is very different from let's say, the British. But also the British is very important because, let's say, what is important about the UK Mexican Art Society is that it's not just about bringing the Mexican to the UK, but also taking the British cultural, let's say, richness to Mexico, and that it's so different because the British will be very formal and it will be very much about facts, while the Mexicans will be more intuitive, and they will have other feelings. It's going to be more about, one is more sensorial, the other one seems to be much more intellectual.
But that is really interesting because you bring that together, right? Like we can see those differences here, and I think the society would show us that, right? Is that right?
Yes, and then during the last few years, we have suffered so much this dichotomy and these divisions. And I'm just going to wait for 1 second because sometimes it's either the West or the East. At this moment it's China or it's America. Then in the UK we have Brexit, Brexiters, Remainers, and the whole world seems to be like kind of like separating really badly. And we have to find the divine there's something divine in this dichotomy. There's the duality. And that duality, for example, in the Mesoamerican cultures, we have the Ometeotl. And Ometeotl is not female, it's not male, it's both. And there's, in the Mayas, when it came into the name of the days, one day could be adverse, the other day could be on your favor. But what they have in common is that they were both divine. And this is something similar to Chinese Taoism, Yin and the Yang. So what I think is very important is to think about the in between, how this duality has these fine lines in which things can work together, or they can be different, but they can still meet without having to have to confront so badly in this case. This is a bit of a dream because it's not the truth. If we look at our history, all what we see is there's always war. It's always war, conflict. But we can also think about possibilities, and that's what arts are about. Sometimes arts, in arts, what you find is hope, but also inspiration, and inspiration to perhaps to create a better work, as some people say. That the purpose is to inspire and to do other things. Yes.
That's amazing. So what kind of exhibitions are we gonna be able to see in the society? What kind of activities? Because sometimes, for example, we can have this misconception that like a society like this is just for artists or for people that are well educated, but how, for example, how can I get involved in the society? How can I participate in the society? Maybe attend events or doing some collaborations, or how the public in general can do that?
I think the purpose of all what we do is that you have to balance for what you said, for people who will be what in English is called museum shy. And that doesn't mean that 30 years ago museums and galleries were as busy as they are now. There has been a tremendous change in the last 3 decades. Perhaps the 80s changed things, and the 90s completely changed things radically. But so 40, 50 years ago, not everybody went to the museum, and then so we have this idea of the museum shy. That was the person who wouldn't enter a gallery or an art exhibition because it's like entering into a luxury shop. What we like is we try to create exhibitions in the public space where people can see them without having to enter the space.
Like the one that you have just outside. Could you please explain us a little bit more about the Mesoamerican one that is outside?
Well, the Mesoamerican exhibition was just a very simple and basic exhibition of photography. And I just didn't want to start with an exhibition of contemporary art, because what I wanted was to make sure that people understand that we don't want just contemporary art from Mexico. We want this exhibition is like a gesture, is for us to show our aspirations to bring 3,000 years or 3,500 years of Mexican art and history. And hopefully many times we can do that in public spaces, in places where people can access that for free, and that is one of the objectives. I mean, the other thing that is important to mention is that we only have this space, but this is like headquarters. The idea is to work in collaboration with many other institutions, and we want to work, for example, next year we are in talks to do something at the British Library, and perhaps we can do something in collaboration with Google. And one of our trustees is a curator from the British Museum. So we want not just to focus on this little space, but to be the connection, the link between the UK and Mexico, And the same thing we want to do in Mexico. We have this land in Mexico, but we also want to link to work with other institutions. So to answer your question, the way people can participate, that's what I've been doing these days. For example, I ask people, hey, what would you like to do? Are you interested in film? Are you interested in literature, in photography? So perhaps you can get involved by participating, creating a workshop, creating talks, screenings. And so I want people to use this space, to use the platform, and I suppose we can have people who can be benefit in different levels. And the space, well, what happens to these things we do is that they are open. They're always open, and everybody is always welcome. And and that's how we sometimes try to break the ice. Normally, contemporary exhibitions tend to be very cold, but what we did with Charlton Gallery, we sometimes did a little bit of music, we cooked some food, we cannot just be so stiff. So we had to break the ice, but still always remember that there's a time for everything. So sometimes you can be very serious and you have to be serious, academic, and focus and respect the arts. And other times you can be fun and you can just dance as well.
That's actually something that I wanted to ask you before. What is the main difference between the Charlton Gallery and the society? But I think you already asked that.
That's right. So I always say that there's change and continuity. Change is that we focus on Mexican art from antiquity to the present. Continuity is that we will continue supporting, promoting Mexican contemporary art as well, and British contemporary art. In Mexico, mainly British art. And here we will try to work, as I said, in collaboration, but with institutions, but also we want to have ambitious installations on public spaces. But I like to play with the times. I mentioned many times, if we are in October, I'm not going to bring an exhibition of pottery from the 19th century. In October it's freeze, and we need to make sure that we bring the best Mexican contemporary artists. In this case, this is the freeze time, and we have Melanie Smith. Melanie Smith represented Mexico at the Venice Biennale in 2011. She both represents Mexico and the UK, and she's an important artist, and it was a privilege to work with her. And in June, there's also a possibility in which we should always focus on something contemporary, but perhaps also look for spaces for architecture. So we can bring opportunities for Mexican architects, or talk about something about the architecture UK.
Okay. So we have seen also that among the objectives of the society is to raise some funding. Is that right?
One of the things we want to do as well is like buy a work of art by a Mexican artist donated to a British public institution, and buy works of art by British artists the other way around, by a Mexican artist to a British institution, and a British work of art for a Mexican public institution. And at the moment, like a few years ago, I donated a few books to Tate. There are about 200 catalogs of Mexican art. And hopefully we can bring more and eventually have the biggest collection of Mexican art outside Mexico at Tate. And if we continue building more partnerships, perhaps we can have the biggest collection of anthropology from Mexico at the British Museum. And so the whole idea is to have a legacy, and that legacy exists with this type of things. Funding is important, of course, because we are a charity, so everything we do, we try to raise it by, sometimes we're going to be selling works of art, sometimes we're going to be selling other things we are allowed. We're going to apply for public funding and also private funding. So the three elements are very important. Yeah. And yes, definitely funding is essential for everything we do.
So how people can donate to the charity? What is the process?
There's going to be different ways you can donate. One-off, you can find this information on the website. You can become a friend, and you can become a patron, or you can become a corporate supporter. I suppose there are many ways in which we can start talking about ways to get involved and ways to support. And there's always there's always a way, a benefit for whoever joins, and of course, as I said, this is very important.
Okay, that's very, pretty nice. Something that I'm wondering personally, and I would like to ask you. I'm from Oaxaca, so I've been involved in many cultural aspects and with the Mixtecs especially. So I believe that indigenous people have played an important role in the Mexican history. Do you have in mind something to cover that part of of that aspect?
Completely. This is a very important. This is when people this year were talking about Black Lives Matters, I wasn't always very comfortable with this idea that it has to be black or it has to be white or just black. And I think this is a bit problematic, and sometimes this is a difficult subject. What I'm interested is in the others, not just this and not just that. And yes, it's very important that all these people get real independence, because most of them, they haven't gotten independence. In fact, when independence came, they lost more, because before the independence in 1821 or that period, there were authorities, and these were local authorities run by indigenous, and they lost a lot of the rights. I mean, Oaxaca, luckily, is one of these places where people, local people there is very strong, they organize themselves, but still unfortunately, we still live in a very colonial time. And the important thing is that, yes, we want to support that. And this is when, for example, we have an exhibition of painting, an open call in December. And yes, I am thinking we should be diverse. It has to be male, it has to be female, and it also has to be out of the city and from another type of background. It's unfortunately, this is a problem which is really hard to sometimes think about it, because the colony is still there. Yeah. The colony is still there. The owners of most places are not the people who should be, perhaps. And we don't want a radical change. All what we want is we hope we can support that. And that's the intention with the residents in Mexico. The residents in Hidalgo is that people should come to Hidalgo, learn from local people, work with them, learn from them, and then contribute. So we don't want to just come and gentrify and say this is what it is. So we want to learn from them, we want to work with them, and we want to find ways in which we can engage, we can support, and be inclusive. So this is why the residency in Hidalgo is called Mesoamerican Cosmology. And it's about this rediscovering, but it's not appropriation, it's collaboration. And that's what I said to people. There's an artist who went to that place, and I said, don't take fizzy drinks, don't take this type of things, give them something to them. We try to give them something because they are helping. And it's a very important, they said this is, I think this government is trying to do things, and there's much work to do in that front. And we're going to, as I said, we can't just change everything, but we want to play our part.
Would you like to extend that project that you have?
Work with people, and then we can always do as much as we can, And the idea will be to work with networks, decentralized networks, in which, and so there's an artist, Fernando Palma. Fernando Palma is a very well-known artist. I think next year he's going to be at the Serpentine Gallery. He's going to be showing something at the Serpentine Gallery. He's got a project in Milpa Alta. In Oaxaca, there are people, you probably know people working on, with these things. So it's a real challenge, and we're gonna do as much as we can, and that's the exciting thing about this project, that it has so many possibilities.
Wow. No, absolutely. You are doing a great job, not just here in London, in Mexico, and in Hidalgo, everywhere. So that's why we admire you so much. And yeah, I think we can keep talking a lot with you, because you have always something to share with us, and we can learn from you a lot. But the last question that I would like to ask you is, how can we get informed about the program, the events that the society is carrying out, so we can attend them?
Well, the website is ukmexicanarts.org. We are in Instagram, Facebook, Twitter as UK Mexican Art Society. And everything we do, we publish that. And there's an e-newsletter on the website. And yeah, the information is there, UK Mexican Art Society, and you will find us. There's no other UK Mexican Art Society, so I think that's going to be an easy way to find us. Yeah. And as I said, there are many different ways in which many people can contribute, and hopefully we can see you in 10 years with many great successful stories.
Definitely, I'm pretty sure about it, and we wish you the best luck with this new project that you are just started. We are confident that this is gonna work, definitely. And thank you again, Javier, for this time. Thank you for your experience, all the things that you have shared with us. We really appreciate it. I don't know if you want to say something to finish our conversation.
No, thank you. Thank you for your also for your time and for this interview. And yes, please do visit us. Whoever watches this, get in touch and become a friend of the UK Mexican Art Society.
Definitely, we will do. Thank you, Javier.
Bye-bye.
Bye.